NFL season, not just here in Owings Mills, where Luke Jones and I will be standing by out in the summer heat for all things Ravens reports around here at WNST. We'll hear from players and all that good stuff. But meanwhile, the first place Baltimore Orioles chug on north of the border to Toronto this weekend, and lots of teams around Major League Baseball looking to buy. Few teams, sadly, looking to sell anything. Dieter Kurtenbach covers all things sports as a senior writer at Fox Sports. A lot of NBA, a lot of Major League Baseball, a little intersection of all of that this summer. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at @DKurtenbach. That's KURTENBACH out on Twitter. Dieter, always welcome here in Baltimore at WNST. Good to have you back on as one of our defending champions. A lively summer for the trading deadline for a lot of baseball teams, right?
Yeah, it's a fascinating summer. It's one of the best sellers markets I can remember. The second wild card has created a lot more buyers this time of year, and it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of top flight talent up there. So the premiums are very high. We're seeing some pretty intriguing stuff. We'll see how it all pans out.
You know, man, I'm an old guy, right? I think you're younger than me. I'm 47. You know, I go back into the 70s and before free agency and swapping players and all that stuff. You know, there were always times where you'd swap a real player for a real player. There's very little of that going on. Like, I mean, I saw the Orioles talking about Jimenez for Upton, which is my problem and your problem and your $22 million problem for my $15 million problem. And there's a little bit of that. And in the NBA, it's all about the salary cap. But in baseball, it really is fascinating how much pitching is valued. No one would ever trade an is pitcher for an is position player at this point. The pitchers have such incredible value, and we're finding out that in Baltimore being on the wrong end of that because we need pitching and we don't have enough talent at the minor league level to even think about going and getting anyone that's really a 1 or a 2 at this point.
Yeah, but I think that's the case for a lot of teams in baseball. And the teams that do have the talent to go out and get a 1 or a 2, then they have to deal with sort of the other side of that argument, which is, do you want to completely purge your farm system, which you're pretty much going to have to do unless you are a team like the Dodgers and you have about 3 farm systems stacked on top of each other. But do you want to purge your entire system to go out and get a guy like Chris Sale from the Chicago White Sox? I mean, Chris Sale's arm can explode on September 1, and then you have mortgaged your future for the long term. So it goes both ways. There is a massive premium on starting pitching, an even higher premium on elite starting pitching, but you don't necessarily need an elite starting pitcher if you're a team that's in a buying category right now. If you've waited this long to go get an ace, you didn't have a chance in the first place. So a guy like Andrew Cashner in San Diego, he might not be an ace, but he's a solid 3 or 4 in that rotation for a really, really good team. He's a number 5. That's a guy I think that the Orioles would be really well served to press. And there's a lot, you know, the notion that the Orioles were involved in conversations with the Padres over Ubaldo Jimenez for Upton. That gives, I would imagine that would give a lot of hope and gets a little bit of tread on the tires for a possible cash and move to Baltimore. That's where I'm projecting him to go, but we'll see how it all pans out.
Well, it is amazing in how you rank these guys in the here and now, where you look at Jimenez, and a couple of years ago he was going to be a savior, and they're going to back up $50 million for him, and now they, dying to get rid of him. Buck doesn't even want to bring him into a game at all, quite frankly, let alone a blowout situation. Certainly doesn't want to start him anymore, and maybe relegated to having to do that again at some point. And then there's always the pressure of the owner around here, who's half nuts, and probably said, "Well, I'm paying him, play him," and
right.
And it really is funny how little value guys have when it's gone that way, and when you're paying him $15 million, it's sort of like, just do anything to take this guy away because I don't want to pay him anymore. And the Padres did that with Shields. I thought the White Sox had made a good move in doing that. They didn't, and now then you have the other end of this, right, with the Yankees and a potential sell-off for them and renting out Chapman the way they did, and how the Cubs feel like the boogeyman to everybody. It feels like the Cubs are going to be wildly favored in October, especially now that they picked up Chapman.
I don't disagree with that, but I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I grew up a White Sox fan. I understand how the Cubs operate from a perhaps biased but a bit more objective viewpoint as a Chicagoan. The Cubs are going to have to be exceptionally better than the rest of the National League in order to make it to the World Series and much less win it. The pressure that comes the closer they get is, to say the least, soul-crushing. The way I've always put it is that the Cubs have to be 175% of every team in the National League if they expect to get to the World Series, because the pressure is going to come and it's going to knock them down to 100. If that team's 110%, that pressure is going to come and it's going to knock them down to 50. So
there's nowhere else the pressure's like that anymore now that Boston has finally won, right? I mean, certainly here in Baltimore, yeah, we'd like to win. In Cleveland, they'd like to win. In Texas, they might win. The Nationals have been around it. But there's nothing like that pressure cooker. And I've told everyone, you better win game one. You better win game one because it's probably going to be played at home.
You know it.
And because that's when the wheels start coming off the cart. If Arrieta goes out there and somehow they lose 4-3 in game one.
Yeah, everyone's expecting the worst, and that's the best team in the National League. I like the Giants a lot. I wouldn't sleep on the Dodgers if they get healthy, but the Cubs and the Nationals are pretty darn good, but I don't know if this is their year. But the Cubs are by far the best team in the National League. I just don't. When was the last time the best team won the World Series? It doesn't happen all that often anymore. 5-game series in the first round, you lose 3 games and you're done. All you have to do is have one bad game and it knocks the entire series off the rails. So they're doing the right thing by going for it. But they have a nice long window. I have no problem with the Chapman trade. That's a win-win for both teams. The Yankees bought him low from the Reds and sold him high. The Cubs need to make sure that they have every possible. They don't need those minor leaguers. All their elite minor leaguers are on this team, and they're competing for a World Series. So you can sell a lot of that really stock farm system to go out and get other impact guys. And Chapman is no question an impact guy. That makes it a really good Cubs bullpen.